So now as we're getting to the college bowl games and getting through this shit and we're getting close to the end of the NFL regular season, we've got 2 more weeks of games left. Felt like a perfect time to come on here and do an updated 2022 mock draft. And this one's a little bit different because it is a 2-round version. That's right, not 1 round, 2 rounds, not just 1 round, 2 rounds. That means you get more picks, 64 of them from me this time, and you can check those out in the description box below. However, before you start just randomly looking at them and bitching about them, I ask only that you give me the opportunity to provide the context for what I have done here. Is that fair? It feels like it's fair. I know it doesn't matter, but feels pretty fair. All right. So anyways, where do we start off? Well, of course, we start off with the team picking first, the Jacksonville Jaguars. And oh God, what a dumpster fire. Duval football! It's really hard to do this mock draft here because there is a piece to me sometimes that I say they took the wrong quarterback, number 1, and maybe they should move on a year later, but no, that's unfair to Trevor Lawrence. That would be even more of a dumpster fire thing to do for the Jags. And there's not a quarterback in this draft that strikes you and says that's so obvious that you have to do it. I don't think it is. So you're in this weird spot where the Jags took a quarterback number 1 overall last year. So quarterback is not something they're going to be addressing here. Meanwhile, they have needs everywhere else on the roster. Like everybody else can be upgraded. Everybody else is replaceable. So it's both a good and a bad spot. It's a good spot for the Jags in the sense of they can take whoever they feel is the best player available at number 1 overall. It's a bad thing because, yet again, the Jacksonville Jaguars are picking high and you know they're probably going to screw it up. It's also a bad thing because leave it to them to get the number 1 overall pick in a year where they don't have a ton of leverage because there's not a quarterback there that you can envision, at least right now, a bunch of teams pining to trade up to that number 1 overall spot so the Jaguars can get a bounty of picks for that next coaching staff and the front office to work with. So there's a possibility they're going to be stuck taking somebody at number 1 overall, and it's hard to sit there and say who it would be, without knowing who the next head coach is going to be. We know that Trent Baalke is going to be the general manager still in 2022, and I got to imagine Jags fans are all types of excited about that one. But I've got Kayvon Thibodeaux is the pick, the edge rusher from Oregon. I'm sorry. Right now, I'm just not seeing what the elite special physical traits are for an Aidan Hutchinson that are putting him in the same conversation as a Thibodeaux. If you're taking somebody number 1 overall, you've got to be targeting elite special, game-breaking, game-changing type of traits. And I'm not saying Hutchinson isn't a good player. I'm saying that in a typical draft, I would look at a guy like an Aidan Hutchinson and typically say, this feels more like a 10 to 20 type of guy, or a 15 to 25 type of guy. Like a solid foundational piece, maybe some Pro Bowl potential, but I don't know true game record. And if you're going to say, well, look at his performances in some of the big games he had this year, okay, that's fair to a degree, but that all doesn't automatically mean that he has translatable traits to the next level that indicate he's going to dominate at a similar level like he did in 2021. That's what I'm saying. Whereas you could look at Thibodeaux and you could see some of those projectable physical traits that are elite, that are high level. It's a risky spot for the Jags no matter what because the overwhelming odds are whether they take Thibodeaux or a Hutchinson or somebody else, they're going to get it wrong and not take the best player in this draft. And that's not even an indictment on the Jags. That's why I talked about in the last mock draft video is that the overwhelming evidence over the past 20 plus years is that the player that goes number 1 overall ends up not being the best player in the draft. And sometimes it's not even close. But for the Jags, if they're picking there, I think you got to go with the elite upside and the elite physical traits. And it's got to be Thibodeaux. For the Lions, I still stand firm. I think drafting a defensive lineman number 2, even though they're not number 1 this time, they're number 2, I think it's really idiotic. I absolutely do. You have to draft the quarterback and build around him. And some are going to try and get cute and say, well, in this draft, maybe you could take somebody else first, and then you get the quarterback later on. No. You have to make a statement. You have to start with the quarterback. You have to build around the quarterback. Because when I hear these arguments about, well, you build up the team and then you bring in the quarterback, how do you know that the team you've built up is even going to fit the quarterback that you bring in? You have to start with the quarterback. It all starts with the quarterback. There are two opinions to have on this. It is that you have to get the quarterback right or nothing else matters and everything else is a fucking waste of time. And you want to start with that quarterback first, or you want to have the wrong opinion. So for the Lions, they've got to hope that they can talk themselves into and justify taking one of these quarterbacks with that first pick. They have to. No, they have to. They have to. And to those saying, well, they've got Jared Goff under contract for 2022. And your point is what? Goff is a goof. He's terrible. Terrible. No. It's got to be somebody. And for now, I'm just penciling in Kenny Pickett. But believe me, that do not take that automatically as me saying that he's my number one quarterback in this draft, okay? Now, where some of you might look at pick 3 with Houston, you're going to say, Karlaftis over Hutchinson? Karlaftis over a quarterback? Look, Houston could convince themselves that they don't have to take a QB round 1 because of Davis Mills. I don't agree with that sentiment, but we are talking about the Texans, so we're talking about the Texans. It's also hard to know like what's going to happen in this offseason with Deshaun Watson. Is he going to be traded? What type of package they get back? Like, could change a lot of things here. But I think Karlaftis is a better fit for Lovie Smith's defense, if assuming that Texans coaching staff is back in 2022, and frankly, I think they should be. Because look at the situation they were put in. Right now, they don't have the number 1 pick in this draft. Like, they deserve at least a little bit of respect. Because that's a dumpster fire situation, a dumpster fire team, and they haven't been a total and complete dumpster fire. So Culley, that coaching staff, does deserve a second year with hopefully some better pieces. They do. It'd be criminal behavior by the Texans front office to fire that coaching staff after 1 year. It absolutely would be. But I think Karlaftis is a better fit for Lovie's defense. And I think, you can make an argument there are more elite physical traits there with him than there are Hutchinson. That's just my opinion. Now, what might fluster you more if you're a Jets fan is you're looking and you're saying, you got them taking Williams, a wide receiver at number 4? I'm wondering if somebody's going to fall in love with his speed and talk themselves into taking him in the top 10 or higher. I'm also looking at this and say, when you look at the Jets and you look at the board, maybe they would take an offensive lineman. Maybe you're saying with Saleh as the coach, they would take a defensive player there. But at the end of the day, you drafted Zach Wilson last year, or this past draft, you have to build around him. That is the priority. Do not be the Jets of the old, where you sit there and you get a quarterback and then you invest all of your high premium picks over the next several years on the fucking defense because you're morons. That's what the Jets of old would do. You have to be different. You have to operate differently. So go get a goddamn playmaker for your young quarterback to give him every chance he could possibly have to succeed. Because you have needs everywhere. The Jets suck. So, if you think that a guy like a Williams or one of the other wide receivers, you can pencil in another wide receiver. If you think they make a world of sense, so be it. It could also be that the Jets might take a wide receiver with one of those 2 first-round picks, but they might be able to peel back a little bit because somebody else wants to trade up to draft a quarterback. That could also be the case. But you'll see here for the Jets, I've got them taking Williams and then Kyle Hamilton from Notre Dame. So you're getting, a big-time playmaker on offense and a big-time playmaker on defense potentially. Could do a lot worse for themselves. Meanwhile, for the Giants, you've got Ekwonu. I've got them taking him at 5 because they need all types of help on that offensive line, especially if they're going to be committed to Danny Dimes in 2022 for reasons that are unbeknownst to me. And then Aidan Hutchinson, like here, I think is a good fit and a good place for him. They need players in New York for both teams. They're just god-awful and abysmal and terrible. For the Carolina Panthers, I've got them drafting Matt Corral here. I wonder if some of the things that he does at the college level actually can translate to the NFL level. But that's a Carolina absolutely has to take a quarterback here. They're fucking idiotic for not taking one this year. Just dumb. Fields, Mac Jones, I don't care. Should have taken one. They didn't because Matt Rule and that front office Carolina are dumb. They spent their entire draft in 2020 on defense in an offense-driven league. And then come around in the first round with the 8th pick in 2021 and then take a corner. That's criminal behavior. And then you're trading away future second-round picks for Sam Darnold And that's why the Carolina Panthers are basically picking in the same spot that they were last year. So you have to get a quarterback. Whether he'll end up being the right one or not remains to be seen, but you have to take one. For those that may be asking, because a lot of Bears fans watch me, who do I have them taking? You might be giggling, titsing yourself because I've got them drafting David Bell, the wide receiver from Purdue, at pick 39 in round 2. Look, you can go several different ways with that second-round pick of the Bears. You can't get so honed in on need that you ignore better players at other positions. And I also want to be absolutely clear here. The Bears have needs all over the fucking place. You could say you're not going to focus on quarterback in this draft. Fine. Although I could say you could make an argument that a day 3 pick may be justified because Justin Fields starting to get a little bit of that Trubisky's disease if I can't play all the games of the season. But they have needs everywhere. If you say, well, they don't have a need here, yes, they do. Yes, they do. Edge rusher, you can always use more. Let's just look at the defense. Defensive line. Are you going to bring back Nichols or not? Hicks may be gone. What about Eddie Goldman? He hasn't exactly been great this year. So there's needs on the defensive line. Guys that could potentially be upgraded. Look at the linebacking core. Roquan is Roquan, but what else you got? Robert Quinn's been phenomenal this year, but what happens if you get rid of Khalil Mack, or even if you keep him? Like, he missed a good portion of the season. The point of getting at here is, outside of just the obvious needs like wide receiver, corner, safety, offensive guard, center. Like, they could arguably stand for upgrades just about anywhere. So I'm saying that to say, like, it doesn't have to be a wide receiver in round 2. Because some of their investment in that position is going to have to come via free agency anyways. That's just a reality. But that's who I've got them taking as of right now. And I'm sure a lot of Bears fans will be happy with that. And I'd be okay with it. But anyways, you can check out my 2-round mock again. It's in the description box below. Let me know how much you want to tear it to shreds. Once the regular season is over, I will do another updated mock draft. Probably do another 2-round version at that point in time. So stick around for that.